Hello class, this is Demetrius Wilson again with Principles of Management. This is Chapter 2, Lecture Part 1. We'll move on quite quickly through the chapters. Each chapter, as I mentioned in Chapter 1, will have a lecture going through the PowerPoint. The PowerPoints will be attached in Talonnet, as well as this video and other supplemental videos that you will watch and review. So chapter 2 talks about history, globalization, and ethics. A couple of things that really need to be considered and need to be looked at when you're discussing business, especially the ethics portion. So these are our learning objectives, and before any chapter, before any course, anything that you do, you need to go over what the learning objectives or student learning outcomes are. So we want to learn about the history of management. We want to know the context for contemporary principles of management, that means today, understand key global trends, see how globalization is affecting management principles and practices, and appreciate the importance of value-based leadership, quote unquote, ethics in management. And it definitely belongs there. So again, we're looking at the POLC framework, the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And I like how they did this in this chapter and some of the other chapters coming after this, where they said this is what goes and falls under planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So under planning, you have vision and mission, strategizing, goals and objectives. Remember, goals are long-term, objectives are short-term. So objectives are the sprint, goals are the marathon race. Organizing, you have organization design, culture, and social networks, which we'll get into quite in detail. Leading, we have leadership, decision-making, communication, groups and teams, and motivation. And controlling, system processes, strategic human resources, things that you need to do in the human resource and disciplinary function to control and ensure that your team is doing the right thing. So the POLC framework must be adapted to meet global challenges. So it's not about just what we're doing here domestically in the United States, but also about what our company is doing globally, internationally, throughout the world. So we're going to talk about a few people that were very influential in regards to management in the yesteryears, as well as some of the things that have stuck and have stayed with us throughout time. So Henry Fail, he has 14 principles that we will discuss. Very interesting. Frederick Taylor, he went through scientific management, or Taylorism as some people may call it, and we'll talk about people such as Henry Ford and how they looked at these different individuals and used the knowledge that they had to help their business. And Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, they did time and motion studies. How do you do something? How long does it take? Maybe we should do it better. This is the way I think you should do it. Let's see how much time we can save. So Fayol's principles of management. So Henry Fayol was a French mining engineer. During the early 1900s, Fayol developed a series of 14 principles of management. These principles still influence management practices today. So all these things that you hear and you listen to in this lecture, I can guarantee you will see some of them when you go back to work, whether you're a manager or an employee. So here are his principles of management 1 through 7. Specialization allows workers to become more productive. If all I do is take a hammer and hit a block every day, and for my whole 8 hours, I'm going to get pretty good at taking that hammer and hitting that block. Number 2, managers must have the authority to issue commands with the responsibility to ensure that the work gets done. If you don't have any authority, then how are you going to tell someone what to do? Number 3, workers must obey orders if business is to run smoothly, and good discipline is a direct result of effective leadership. I'd probably take the obey word out of there, but you do have to listen to directions. Number 4, an employee should receive orders from only one boss to avoid conflict. I will tell you there is a certain type of organization, like a matrix organization, that you do have more than one boss. You have a manager, and then you also have a project manager on the project that you're working on. So either one of those individuals can tell you what to do. Number 5, each group should follow one coordinated strategy. If we're all going different directions, that's definitely not going to work. Number 6, one individual interest should never trump the good of the group, right? We need to go for the good of the team. And number 7, workers must be compensated fairly. If they're not compensated fairly, they will eventually leave and go somewhere else. Number 8, the decision to centralize or decentralize decision making should depend on the competency of the workers, right? So centralized meaning I'm the boss and I make all the decisions and I'm in Arlington, Texas. But you could go with decentralization, in which I say, you know what, on the West Coast, John, you can handle it in California, and in the East Coast, Katie, you can handle it in New York, and in the South, Jojo, you can handle it in Alabama. That's a decentralized structure. Number 9, the line authority extends from top management to the lowest ranked labor, but communication can also occur laterally if bosses are aware, right? So you have communication. If it goes from you to your boss, that's upward communication. If it goes from boss to you, your boss to you, then that's downward communication. If it goes from you to somebody who is at the exact same level as you, then that is horizontal communication, right? You can have diagonal because it could be me communicating with somebody who's higher than me, so a manager to a director in another department. Uh, Number 10, orderliness is necessary for an efficient workplace. If you're junky, you got stuff all over your desk, it's hard for you to put your thumb on certain things. You need to be organized. Number 11, the workspace must be fair and respectful, and bosses must treat employees with a combination of kindliness and justice, right? Yeah, you have to tell people what to do and everything, but you should still be kind and respectful of everybody that works for you. 12, tenure and stability promote the development of skills and loyalty, while high employee turnover incurs inefficiency, right? So if you have a lot of people coming in, coming out, they'll do this on the extra interview. They'll say, hey, what is it about this manager that's driving these individuals away from the company? Number 13, allowing any member of the organization to create plans promotes worker enthusiasm and generates new ideas, right? If I'm involving you in the plans, it's gonna get you pretty motivated. Number 14, harmony with the team promotes morale and productivity. So limitations of early theorists, right? So manual labor force and dehumanized workers and shift to knowledge workers is kind of where we're at. It was funny in a Business One class I was teaching just yesterday, I showed them a video about how it used to be on the production line at Ford. And they showed that if somebody like got off the assembly line and went to the bathroom, they said that the guy would be looking for them, right? The foreman, he would come and he would find them, and he would find them in the bathroom stall, and he would tell them to get up. And if they said if there was nothing, and he'd put his foot over the thing to flush the toilet, if there was nothing in the toilet, he was like, get out and get back to work, which is very extreme and not anywhere near where we are now in America, but that's how things happen way back in the day. So if you want to know more about that, you probably need to ask like your grandfather or great grandfather, and they'll be able to explain it to you. So management ideas of the 1990s, and now the 1990s seems so far away because it's 2015. But Peter Drucker, Tom Peters, and Robert Waterman, and Warren Bennis, all people who contributed greatly to this management movement. So in search of excellence, so you want to manage ambiguity and paradox, right? You want to be clear and transparent in your communications. You don't want to be biased. You want to remain close to a customer, especially if you're a consumer-facing business. You want to have autonomy and entrepreneurship, right? You want to give people some space to do what they need to do. Now, if they're not doing what they need to do, then we have to have a conversation. But people need autonomy and people need empowerment to be successful. Productivity through people. You can't do everything yourself. If you're a manager that says, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to do it myself, that never works out. You end up getting burnt out and you'll be out of there before a year's even over. Hands-on and value-driven, right? So a lot of managers like to be hands-on. I'm not saying that's the only way that you should be, but the respect factor comes a lot quicker if you are hands-on. And value-driven, the things that you do have to incur value. If what you're doing, the end goal or the end result is not to achieve value or profit, then you're doing the wrong thing in the company. Uh, we'll skip that simple form, lean staff, right? So you want to have a lean staff. They talk about your span of control, that managers should only manage a certain amount of people, but sometimes it depends on the longevity of the people, how long have they been at the company, and things of that nature. Simultaneous loose type properties, we'll go ahead and skip that one as well. But let's talk about Mr. Peter Drucker, right? I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Peter Drucker. He's definitely all over the place. But these are his management recommendations. So empower people by involving everyone in decision making, right? Come on in, let's make this decision together as a group, as a democratic style. Eliminate bureaucratic rules and humiliating conditions, right? Cut out all the red tape, and you don't want to have humiliating conditions where you're kind of singling somebody out and making them not feel good about their decisions. Celebrate and recognize employees for their contributions, right? Let people know. Tell them thank you. Simple high five, or send an email, great job, or even send it up to your manager and say, hey, this is what we did, and it's all because of our employees. And then you want to develop an inspiring vision. If you just have a vision that's on the wall, so what? But if you have a vision that's inspiring and it gets people excited, then that's a whole nother story. And then you want to lead by example. Nobody's gonna, just jump up and be a great employee if you're a terrible manager or boss, right? Because they say, hey, well, if all I'm gonna be is what that guy is, then I've got some practice at not doing too well. So management history timeline, we'll kind of skip over that, but if you want to go back to that and look at the management history timeline, these are some of the the key moments in management history. And this also goes to some additional key moments. And one I will point out is that 1881 AD, the University of Pennsylvania becomes the first U.S. business school thanks to a donation by Joseph Warden. So go through those, check those out. But that one's interesting. That okay, when did somebody say, you know what, we need business schools and as opposed to just a regular university? Discussion questions, as always, those are going to be all on you. So what goals seem to dominate early management principles, and why do you think this is the case? Right, well, I'll tell you a few reasons why it's the case. Because there were no unions and people just had to deal with it to put food on the table. So review those and check out the discussion questions. Like I said, if you want to do it with someone else, that's great. If you want to do it alone, that's great too. If you want to look in the mirror, if you want to work on it with your dog, that's great too. And if your dog responds back to you in English, then let me know, and we'll put them on TV. So corporations as social movements, we are able to connect virtually, right? So I have so many meetings that are virtual through link, through bridges, conference calls, things of that nature. Have fluid boundaries, right? One of the things that I looked at for BestBuy.com, they had this special on how their telecommuting was working so well. And one guy, he would run during the morning and he would stop at Starbucks and he would get on the conference call. One lady, she liked to sleep in and she was a night owl, so she would sleep till probably about like 12:30, and then she would wake up and she would do her work. But in all these instances, what they found out is that everybody was more productive, right? And there's one guy who he's like, hey, I need to come into the office, otherwise I'll be counterproductive. Reduction of formal procedures, right? So a little bit less formal procedures, and dynamic and shifting authority structures. So the blurring between social movement and corporation is evidence in the incorporation of Occupy Portland, an offshoot of the Occupy Wall Street movement in Portland, Oregon. All right, so social networking. I mean, everybody here, I'm sure, does social media, social networking, things of that nature. So it assists in identifying experts, right? Because we want to find people who maybe do separate blogs or stuff like that, make comments about things in our particular industry. We want to get those individuals, find out what we're doing wrong, and then let us know how to fix it. Efficient sharing of information, right? We share a lot of information. Everything's on the server. I don't know any time that I've just like my computer's just been wiped clean and lost everything. So, typically really secure. Showcases skills, talents, and knowledge, right? These are my skills. These are my talents. This is the knowledge base that I have. All pours into social networking. So learning types of learning organizations. You have a systematic and problem solving, right? So I want to go about this. I want to take a systematic approach. Here's a problem. I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And 5.1 in order to resolve the problem. Experimentation, right? That's throwing some spaghetti on the wall and let's see if it sticks, right? If it doesn't, then we just back to the drawing board. And learning from past experiences, right? Uh, I make about 17.5 mistakes a day. That's my quota, and I'm okay with that. But I will learn from my past experience, which is typically mistakes. Learning from others. Some people just don't want to learn from others, whether they don't like them, think the person's breath stinks. Who knows, right? But you should definitely keep an open mind and always learn from others. And then transferring knowledge.